Honourable Member Aswan Sinha.
Okay, there is no problem.
Later on, when it will pass them.
Mr. Chairman, sir, I rise to speak on the supplementary demands for grants that the Finance Minister has presented before this House, and also on the appropriation bill which he has just introduced. Sir, I'd like to congratulate him that the net cash outgo in the supplementary demand is limited to only 25,000 crore rupees, compared to the absolutely horrendous supplementary demands which were presented by his predecessor last year. This has come as a big relief. But I still like to mention that when one goes through the supplementary demands which amount to net cash outgo for the government, there are, I find, many items of expenditure which should have been and easily could have been anticipated at the time of the preparation of the budget. A case in point is 800 crores which has been provided as fresh equity to Air India. We are all aware that Air India has been in a mess for quite a while. When the Finance Minister was preparing his budget earlier this year, he was aware of the very distressing conditions which were prevailing in Air India, and a decision to shore up the equity base of Air India could have been easily taken at that point of time. Air India has incurred losses of something like 7,000 crore. I don't know to what extent 800 crore fresh equity in Air India is going to help Air India recover from the distress and the sickness it is in. But sir, if I may take a moment of your time, I'd like to say that Air India represents a massive failure and mismanagement of a public sector enterprise by the government. Who is responsible, who is guilty is something which should be discussed by this House, and there should be clear conclusions drawn about the future course of action. To me, it appears that mere infusion of 800 crore as equity in Air India is not going to sort out the problem, and the Finance Minister may have to come back to this House again to help Air India. Then there are issues like subsidies for fertilizers, subsidy to the Food Corporation of India. There are additional expenditure on pensions, both defense and civil, and all these are items of expenditure which should have been anticipated. I am aware of the fact that every finance minister does indulge in some sleight of hand. I am also aware of the fact that whether it should be 29.04, 29.4 or 29.6 is also a figure with which finance ministers often play around, and if they can reduce the overall deficit in the budget by even a fraction of a percentage, they often take recourse to that. But the House will agree, Mr. Chairman, that this is not the best budgetary practice, and therefore it is best avoided. But the supplementary demands that the finance minister has presented to the House with a net cash outgo of over 25,000 crore rupees is a small part of the overall problem that the economy is facing. I agree that the finance minister, the present finance minister, inherited a mess from his predecessor. The failure, if I could point it out, of the previous government, the UPA 1, was that they just did not know how to manage a fast-growing economy. They did not know how to manage an economy of surpluses. And therefore, they made some very crucial mistakes in the management of the economy. The predecessor of the present finance minister, Mr. Chidambaram, was a very lucky finance minister. I think he's been one of the luckiest finance ministers in the history of independent India. But he failed to take any of those steps which were necessary when we were passing through those halcyon years, the bright years in our economy. And I'd like to make this point, which has been made by many commentators, that the crisis that we have witnessed in the Indian economy is a crisis of our own creation. We were responsible for bringing the growth rate down. We were responsible for running a huge fiscal deficit. We were responsible for the price rise. It is now a matter of record that the global financial crisis came much later, after we had already inflicted some wounds on ourselves. The global financial crisis, Mr. Chairman, only added to our problems. And the net result has been that while 75% of the problems that we face today, we encounter, were created by us, and 25% only by the global financial crisis. This has resulted in a great deal of suffering for the people of this country, because the great effort which was made during the NDA regime to transform an economy of shortages into an economy of surpluses has again been turned around into an economy of shortages. We were discussing just a little while ago in this House the problem of the sugar industry. Now, the Minister for Agriculture and Food and Consumer Affairs might get his bill passed in this House. But what is the message which has gone across? The message which has gone across is that while the government is permitting sugar to be sold at 35-40 rupees a kilo in retail in the market, the growers of sugar cane, the farmers are not getting their price is being reduced. This is the general message which has gone around in the country. And it is not merely here in sugar, whether you import sugar or not, whether you import rice or not, is another issue. But the fact is that there is a shortage. The fact is there is not only a shortage of sugar, but there is shortage of everything. I mean, I can't imagine why there should be a shortage of LPG in this country. There was a time when we were in office, Mr. Chairman, when the dealers of LPG gas cylinders used to go from house to house to say whether the consumer was interested in buying a cylinder of LPG. Today, the waiting period is more than a month. People have to queue up to get LPG cylinders for domestic cooking purposes. Why has a surplus economy of surpluses suddenly become an economy of shortages once again? This is something which the government will have to explain. Now, every period of time creates or throws up its own problems as far as the management of the economy is concerned. Today's problems are different from the problems that we faced in the last 5 years. And the finance minister, sir, will have to deal with these problems, will have to overcome if the Indian economy has to grow and the people of India have to lead a life of dignity and comfort. Today, it appears to me that the most important problem before the finance minister is the problem of rising, uncontrolled food prices. I was sitting in this house, so I do not know what the figures of inflation, especially of food grains, which should have come today, were. But I'd like to refer to the report of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, which was brought out only last month, in the month of October, and they have themselves said that on the domestic front, the sharp increase in the prices of food grains, especially rice and pulses, other primary food products, and of sugar, is a major policy concern. They have gone on to add, even in the winter of 2008-09, as world prices of manufactured goods and internationally traded basic foods were declining, the domestic prices were increasing 1 year ago, and this has continued to spiral. International food prices were coming down. Our domestic food prices were going up. This is the finding of the Economic Advisory Council of the Prime Minister. So we can't even take comfort from the fact that global prices are rising. And then it points out the dangers which are lurking, the danger that there could be with a world economy growing, how commodity prices will start picking up again, especially petroleum prices, and any other setback in the management of global finance will trigger a crisis of unparalleled proportions and will lead to destabilization. This is the finding of the Prime Minister's Economic Council. Now, when prices had started rising last year, we had advised the government in Parliament and outside that the kind of monetary policy that the RBI was initiating would create more problems. I remember I pointed out even then that the nature of inflation was different. The nature of inflation was confined to price rise of essential commodities, including food grains. And therefore, however harsh a monetary policy you might introduce, it is not going to help control the prices of food grains and essential commodities. This was simple logic. I am not an economist. Neither are you, I hope, Mr. Finance Minister. And one advice which I'd like to give you is, get rid of those economists. You know, a strong common sense is a far greater aid to policy making than all the technical advice that you might receive. So get rid of all, especially the monetary economists. The monetarists are the biggest threat to the stability of this country's economy. So they went for harsh monetary measures. The harsh monetary measures led to shortage of funds, they led to high interest costs, money became unaffordable, money became expensive. And that has created the problem. The global crisis only added to it. Why is your economy growing at around 8% now? Because your exports are declining. Your agricultural growth in that quarter, second quarter, is less than 1% of the GDP. You are still growing at, what, 7.9%? Second quarter? How is this happening? This is where the secret of Indian economy lies. It is domestic savings and domestic demand which will propel the Indian economy forward. And this is where we must concentrate. Domestic demand and domestic savings. Now, inflation is something on which, Chairman Sir, the government has not only failed miserably, it has sent out messages which are most perplexing. Can the Prime Minister of India stand up and say, we are unable to control prices and that we should be prepared to face more increased prices? The Food Minister of India gets up and says, we will not be able to control prices. The Honorable Finance Minister was in Ranchi yesterday, the capital of my state, where he gave explanations which the people of India will not be prepared to buy. It is not, let me quote to you again what the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council has said. The economy, however, continues to be supply constrained, primarily in physical and social infrastructure, electricity, irrigation and drinking water, road and other transportation, and rural-urban economic infrastructure where government plays a major role. In all these areas, we have been found deficient. When one refers to supply-side constraints, it's not merely physical supply, but all these aspects which constitute supply-side economics, Mr. Chairman. And on all these, we have, unfortunately, not been able to keep pace with demand. I like to remind the Honorable Finance Minister, through you, sir, that in 2002, this country faced a very, very serious drought. I was going through the figures and I am told that the estimated loss of food grain production in Kharif is likely to be a little over 10 million tons. Correct me if I am wrong. 10, 11 million tons is the loss in Kharif production. In 2002, the total decline in food grain production as a result of that drought, the worst ever in recorded history, was 40 million tons. 40 million tons less production of food grains. And I'll advise the Finance Minister to look up his own government's economic survey of 2003-2004, which was presented before the budget of 2004-05, where they have commended the manner in which the then government controlled prices and how the people of this country did not even get to know, except the poor kisans, that there was a drought, that there was a loss of food grain production. Why? Because we had in our godowns over 65 million tons of food grains, rice and wheat, and we pushed it into the market. We told the state governments, please start food for work programs. We will give you food grains free of cost. We gave the grains to the millers so that they could convert it and sell it into the market. We made large quantities of food grains available to the state governments for distribution through the public distribution system, through the Antyodaya Ann Yojana, through the Annapurna Ann Yojana, even free of cost. A midday meal scheme, whole lot of steps were taken to flood the market with the kind of stocks that we were holding in government godowns. And the finance minister bothers to look up the records which are kept in government, which I am sure they are available. He will find the magic key to control the situation today. That's the way to go. They should not be niggardly. They should not be conservative as far as releases from the government godowns are concerned. They should release it liberally. I will even suggest that as far as NREGS is concerned, I'll have more to say on it later, the government could consider releasing part of the wages as food grains so that there is this, the food grains find their way into the belly of the people, into the market, and the pressure on the market is reduced. This is something which is unacceptable. A price rise week after week of this magnitude. You were talking, sir, when we were speaking from there, about how the sugar market is on fire. I would say the entire market is on fire. Entire market of this country of essential commodities is on fire today. And when I'm saying it is on fire, prices are rising on a daily basis. It's not merely that you wait for 1 week to know what the prices will be.
अरे फिर ये बीमारी है खड़े होने की।
What are you doing?
On a daily basis.
आप कैसे
अरे
खड़ा?
यार कुछ पता नहीं है, नहीं समझ पाए इसलिए अरे इकोनॉमिक्स नहीं समझते तो चुप ये लिब्राहन नहीं है, ये इकोनॉमिक्स का नाम है, पूर्व वित्त मंत्री हैं।
So I can't understand, Mr. Chairman, sir, I can't understand the kind of helplessness that the government is displaying in controlling the prices of food grains and other essential commodities. They have all the tools, policy and otherwise, at their disposal, administrative, policy tools at their disposal. Is it a reluctance to use them? Is it, I can't believe that such bright people who are sitting in government, like the finance minister, like the prime minister, would be unaware of what should be done in a situation of this kind? So why isn't it happening? Why isn't it happening? I'm coming, sir, straight from my state of Jharkhand, where we are in the election mode. And perhaps you know, sir, that this is the first day that I am attending Parliament in this session. And I know how it is hurting the people. I'd like to tell the finance minister, sir, that when we go and talk to the people, when we address meetings, and we forget to mention price rise, they remind us and tell us, why have you forgotten price rise? Why aren't you mentioning price rise? How are we going to live? How are we going to make our children live? How are we going to feed the family? This is an absolutely unacceptable situation. And when the finance minister gets up to reply to this debate in the House, sir, I would expect him to say something consoling, to say something comforting, to say something positive on what are the plans of the government to control prices, and especially, as I said, of essential commodities. So this is the most important problem that the economy is facing today. And I'll warn you later that if you fall into the trap of the monetarists, then you are going to face much more difficult situation. Then what is the second most important problem that the finance minister and the country faces today, sir? Again, I'll go back to the Economic Advisory Council's report. The fiscal deficit situation. It is this report. It is not Yashwant Sinha. It is not a member of the opposition. They are saying that if you take the off-budget liabilities of the government, and this is a sleight of hand which his predecessor created, something on which the Comptroller and Auditor General has commented adversely. The easiest way out for Mr. Chidambaram was what? To push the deficit, the liabilities under the line, and then not include it in the fiscal deficit, not include it in the overall deficit. He might consider it a sleight of hand. I have considered it, I have described it as a fraud on budget making in this country. How can you have bonds of every kind, oil bonds and fertilizer bonds and food bonds and this bond and that bond? And what does it mean in simple terms, Mr. Chairman? In simple terms, it means that the government only adds to its deficit the interest burden, and the principal is pushed to some date in the future. So succeeding generation, it's a 10-year bond, somebody else will pay. 15-year bond, somebody else will pay. They'll have to redeem the liability. And then you say, no, everything is hunky-dory, there is no problem, and my deficit. Even then, the finance minister was constrained to put his deficit at over 6% of the budget. And what does the council say? The council says that you add the Government of India's deficit, the state government's deficit, and these off-budget liabilities, which are real liabilities, then the total fiscal deficit is 10.4% of the GDP this year. 10.4%. We are back to the bad old days of the late 80s and early 90s. And the finance minister knows this much better than anyone else, that the reason why India faced that balance of payments crisis in 1990-91 and so much distress and hardship was because of unsustainable fiscal deficits that we ran. And then came, very fortunately for the Government of India, came the global financial crisis. Because on the one hand, it completely concealed all their failures, because they could tell the people of India, you know, all these problems are because of the global financial crisis. They are not because of our creation. And second, that they could describe all this as a stimulus package. I mean, this is again, I thought a lie was an unparliamentary word, but I heard the Home Minister on television utter it repeatedly in this House when he was replying to the Librahn debate. So I'm not going to break the rules and norms of this House by using that pejorative word, but I'm saying this, that nothing could have been further from truth than to mask, to conceal your failures, your inabilities, your shortcomings under the garb of the global crisis, and to describe the huge fiscal deficit that you ran as a stimulus package. I am charging the government today, sir, in this House, that all this was nothing but an effort, an attempt to win the elections. This is what happened. Everything. And if I could put a figure on it, for the 206 seats that the Congress party secured in the last Lok Sabha election, the cost to the country is 4 lakh crore rupees. 4 lakh crore rupees. This is the deficit in this budget. And you, Mr. Finance Minister, sir, you had said in your budget speech that to bring the fiscal deficit under control, we have to initiate institutional reform measures during the current year itself. These measures have to encompass all aspects of the budget, such as subsidies, taxes, expenditure, and disinvestment. This is what you said in your budget speech. Now we are in the month of December, and we are discussing in this House the first batch of supplementary demands. Where is the evidence that such measures to control the deficit have been thought of, or the House taken into confidence about them? I have here a very distinguished economist who wrote a piece, and he said it would be the height of irresponsibility if they can't bring the fiscal deficit back to 3.5 to 4% of the GDP. And there have been so many write-ups in the newspapers about this. Now, does the government have the option or the satisfaction that they can roll back these expenditures whenever they want? Perhaps the US can do it, perhaps the European Union can do it, perhaps Japan can do it, perhaps somebody else who thought of a bailout, including China, they could perhaps do it. But are we in a position to do it? Mr. Chairman, sir, the Finance Minister had proudly informed the House when he presented the budget that for the first time in our history, we had crossed the figure of 10 lakh crore as far as expenditure budget was concerned. 10 lakh crore. Now, I'll first quote the Economic Advisory Council because this is a document of the government. What does it say? The above fiscal developments underscore 4 important points. First, increase in deficit was not due to the stimulus package, but on account of additional outlay on subsidies, pay revision, loan waiver, and increased coverage of NAREGA. Second, the structural component of the deficit is substantial, though some part of it is cyclical. Third, the substantially higher revised expenditure over the budgeted figure brings the poor expenditure management in sharp focus. Poor expenditure management in sharp focus. Fourth, there was limited fiscal space for the stimulus package, and it could not be directed to the desired sectors, particularly infrastructure. This is the finding, these are the comments of the Economic Advisory Council of the Prime Minister. Now, 10 lakh crores, which is, I'd like the Finance Minister to take the House into confidence and tell us that if we were to give up the stimulus package, which are the items of expenditure which you will be able to give up? Which? I had analyzed it. 6,18,834, Mr. Chairman, sir. 6,18,834 crore is accounted for by non-planned revenue expenditure. Non-planned revenue expenditure, which is the most unproductive part of Government of India's expenditure. It consists of why? Because it consists of interest payment, defense, subsidies, pensions, establishment expenditure, postal deficit, and items like this. Where can you compress? Is there anything here which you can roll back next year and say, this is what I am doing in order to peg fiscal deficit at this level? And plan expenditure is only 3,25,149 crore, less than half of the total non-plan expenditure. Interest payment alone, Government of India's interest payment this year is of the order of 2,25,511 crore. 2,25,000 is what we are paying as interest, and we are going to borrow 4 lakh crore this year. Just imagine how much burden, interest burden, is this going to add. And everyone is commenting today on the debt GDP ratio. The debt GDP ratio is increasing beyond all reasonable limits. It's going to touch, according to some estimates, 80% of the GDP by the end of this fiscal. 80% of the GDP will constitute the debt of this country. This can't be described as a comfortable situation at all, Mr. Chairman, sir. And therefore, it is the rigid nature of the expenditure of the government of India, which they were able to sustain because taxes were buoyant, because the economy was growing, especially the industrial economy, the service economy of this country, and taxes were buoyant. Now this year, taxes are not so buoyant. This year we are going to end up receiving far less by way of taxes at the end of the year than what the finance minister projected as tax receipts in his budget. Direct taxes, which was the most buoyant part of the taxation structure of this country, has also been registering very slow growth. So you have a situation where your expenditure will continue to rise, and your taxes will continue to give you less money, and the fiscal deficit, which has been presented at over 10% of the GDP, is likely to expand further. So where is the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, which was passed when we were in office, to bring some discipline in government finances? We have made a travesty of that. It is a sacred act passed by this parliament. And the manner in which it has been turned into a joke is something which is beyond any comprehension. So what happens to the FRBM Act? I'd like the finance minister to tell us in very clear terms, are they going to continue with the act? Are they going to come with a long-term fiscal policy? What are they thinking? And how are they trying to bring government finances back on the rails, back on track again? Because nobody can stand up here and say a large fiscal deficit of 4 lakh crore, which might be 5 lakh crore next year, 6 lakh crore after that, is a very good thing. I see an ad in some television channels, they say, दाग अच्छे हैं. हाँ, वो बच्चा खेलता है मिट्टी में और वो कहते हैं दाग अच्छे हैं because they are promoting a particular brand of soap or detergent. So they are saying दाग अच्छे हैं. Now I would like government to, not like the government to stand up here and say fiscal deficit अच्छा है, इसलिए बढ़ाते जाओ, क्योंकि उसको धोने के लिए कोई डिटर्जेंट नहीं है मिस्टर नारायण स्वामी, आपके पास कोई डिटर्जेंट नहीं है जो उस फिजिकल डेफिसिट को धो पाए.
पार्टी का समय समाप्त है और भी मेंबर है, इसलिए
नहीं, बस हम 2 मिनट में करते हैं. आई ऑब्टेन,
बोलने दीजिए.
अच्छा, देश समाप्त कर दो.
देखिए, this is the latest expenditure figure, which are monthly figures which are released by the Controller General of Accounts, and these are up to October. Up to October, the government of India has already incurred the revenue deficit in 7 months of 73.1%. 73.1% revenue deficit. आगे क्या होगा चल के भगवान ही जानता है.
अंधेरा ही अंधेरा.
फिर अब मैं बिल्कुल आपको विश्वास के साथ कह सकता हूं, फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर भी नहीं जानते कि एट द एंड ऑफ द ईयर ये डेफिसिट बढ़ते बढ़ते कहां पहुंच जाएगा. फिर 2 छोटे छोटे पॉइंट्स. इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की बात आई. अरे ओपन है कि नहीं? हाँ, आ गया. अच्छा.
वहाँ झगड़ा हो रहा ना डेनमार्क में.
Infrastructure.
झगड़ा हो रहा, झगड़ा.
I have no doubt, I can say it without fear of contradiction in this house, that infrastructure has suffered heavily during the last 5-6 years.
UPA 1.
Whether it is highways, whether it is the only thing which is growing is telecom, but telecom is growing because of the momentum which has become automatic.
Yes.
So it is growing automatically. The government does not have the power to stop that growth. But look at roads. I mean, the parliament was elected on the 16th of May. The new minister of surface transport has been in office for some time. I don't know what he's doing, where he is vanished. He was very, like Mr. Jairam Ramesh, he was all over the media when he was commerce minister. Now he suddenly vanished from the scene. Occasionally one hears some that is not my charge, that's Narayan Swami's charge on you. So infrastructure, as the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, if this money was spent on infrastructure, if the government had gone to raise the fiscal deficit, Mr. Chairman, sir, I am making this point very seriously. If the fiscal deficit was 15% of the GDP and the money was going for the creation of infrastructure in this country, I would have been the first to stand up in this house and congratulate the government. Well done. This is what I would have said. But you're wasting that money. I mentioned about NREGS, NAREGA, the great flagship scheme of the government. Do you know, Mr. Chairman, sir, how much of it is being wasted? और आप लोगों ने कैसे बनाया उस स्कीम को मैं नहीं जानता हूं. मैं अब लोकसभा के एमपी के नाते उसको देख रहा हूं. आपका एक स्कीम है उसमें मिट्टी मोरम की सड़क. देयर इज अ कंप्लीट प्रोहिबिशन ऑन यूज ऑफ इक्विपमेंट मशीनरी. तो वो मिट्टी डालता है सड़क पर, वो कंपैक्टिंग होता नहीं है, उसके ऊपर से मोरम डाल देगा. उस सड़क का क्या होगा? एक बरसात में वो सड़क बहती है, बह जाती है एक बरसात. और मैं इस तरह के अनेकों केसेस जानता हूं जहां उसने मिट्टी भी नहीं डाला. एक लंबी सड़क में एक ट्रक वो मोरम लेके गया, उसको थोड़ा थोड़ा ऐसे प्रसाद की तरह छिलकता चला गया और बिल बन गया 10 लाख का, 20 लाख का, कि सड़क कंप्लीट हो गई. मैं मानता हूं कि नारेगा से बड़ी इस देश में कभी बनी नहीं. सारा का सारा एम्प्लॉयमेंट के नाम पर हो रहा है.
आप ऐसे दे दो उससे अच्छा. फिर खड़े हो गए, अरे नारेगा
एम्प्लॉयमेंट के नाम पर
इनको क्या हुआ?
जो बेचारे मजदूर हैं उनको महीनों तक कुछ नहीं मिलता है.
अरे नारायण स्वामी आप दोनों खड़े हो गए.
Making allegation against the government. सर आप चुप क्यों हैं? आप चुप क्यों हैं? आप चुप क्यों हैं?
समय पर
चेयर पर आना बहुत मजा आ रहा है.
जब मैं अपनी सीट पर जाऊंगा सारी बातों को साफ कर दूंगा.
अरे
अब समाप्त हो गया.
अकाउंट में डाल दो.
रूरल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के नाम पर कोई काम नहीं हो रहा है, सिर्फ पैसे का हो रहा है.
शांति
और पॉवर्टी.
शांति.
लाल सिंह जी
और
अरे आप बोलिएगा बजट पर.
हाँ लोग
बैठिए बैठिए
अरे बैठ जाइए ना भाई, बिना बात के खड़े हो जाते हैं.
शांति.
अभी तक मैंने
क्या
खत्म कर
प्रॉब्लम है
दिया.
इनको? नारायण स्वामी जी देखिए क्या प्रॉब्लम है.
सभापति
चेयर पे
महोदय,
हैं सबसे ईमानदार मंत्री और सबसे बेईमान मंत्री.
मंत्री ईमानदार और योजना बड़ी खराब हो गई. आप ही की योजना खराब हो गई.
ये सोशल सेक्टर पर भी बोलिए.
हाँ.
सिक्योरिटी बिल और इसे.
अध्यक्ष महोदय 2 मिनट. सभापति महोदय, अभी
मान लिया सर, नहीं जाएगी प्रसिद्ध.
अपनी सीट पे
आसन
भेजिए
ग्रहण
सर.
कीजिए.
सर इनको सीट पे भेजिए. ये बीच में
कृपा कर आसन ग्रहण
ये
कीजिए. कृपा कर.
ये नारायण स्वामी जी ने बुलाया इसको आगे.
मंत्री बनना चाहता है.
सभापति महोदय,
इनको मंत्री बनाओ भाई.
अरे मंत्री जी, मंत्री जी
इनको मंत्री बनवाइए सर. मंत्री बनने के लिए बेहतर.
आपका भी अनुभव होगा, आपका भी अनुभव होगा,
मंत्री बनेंगे आप.
हमारा
मंत्री,
अनुभव है,
मिनिस्टर.
हम सब का अनुभव है कि जब हम ग्रामीण क्षेत्र में जाते हैं तो एक सबसे बड़ा मुद्दा जो आज के दिन है वो सब है कि मुझे बीपीएल कार्ड दो, बिलो पॉवर्टी लाइन कार्ड मुझे मिलना चाहिए. सबसे बड़ा डिमांड आज रूरल एरियाज में, ग्रामीण क्षेत्र में यही है. गांव-गांव में हर जगह लोग कहते हैं मुझे बीपीएल सूची में शामिल करो, मेरे को बीपीएल कार्ड दो.
लाल कार्ड.
और सरकार से मैंने पता किया, अब मुझे पता नहीं कितने लोग यहाँ इस बात से अवगत हैं कि भारत सरकार की रोक लगी है कि बीपीएल में कोई नया नाम नहीं जोड़ा जाएगा, नहीं जोड़ा जाएगा बीपीएल में.
जिम्मेदारी इन्हीं की है.
और
अब
एनसी
समाप्त किया
सक्सेना
जाए।
कमेटी रिपोर्ट बनी,
हाँ
अब उसके बाद सुरेश तेंदुलकर कमेटी रिपोर्ट, ये रिपोर्ट वो रिपोर्ट, कैलोरी इनटेक होना चाहिए। भाई गरीब
सब
गरीब है
discuss हो गई
यार,
यहाँ।
गरीब गरीब है। मैं आपसे पूछना चाहता हूं सभापति महोदय कि क्या गरीब की पहचान करने के लिए आपको किसी चीज की जरूरत है? गरीब तो गरीब है, उसकी पहचान करने में कोई दिक्कत नहीं होनी चाहिए। मैं तो भारत सरकार को ये सुझाव दे रहा हूं कि गरीबों की पहचान करने के बदले अमीरों की पहचान करने, और बाकी सब
बहुत
गरीब,
बढ़िया,
बाकी सब
बहुत
गरीब,
बढ़िया, बहुत
बाकी सब गरीब हैं और सबको हम
अब
लोगों
समाप्त किया जाए।
को लाल कार्ड उपलब्ध कराना चाहिए, हरा कार्ड उपलब्ध
ये
कराना
disturb कर रहे हैं ना time
चाहिए।
में।
और ये क्या कर रहे हैं, बार बार उठ जा रहे हैं।
अरे मंत्री जी बैठिए। अरे बढ़ जाओ मंत्री जी बैठिए।
और ये जो एक
बैठ जाओ ना, बन जाओगे।
अरे वित्त
आप
मंत्री
जानते
बैठिए।
हैं उपाध्यक्ष सभापति
वो आपको
महोदय,
मंत्री के
झारखंड
सब
में,
कुछ करा रहे
मैं
हैं।
झारखंड का उदाहरण देता हूं। झारखंड में अभी एनसी सक्सेना जो कमीशन को हेड कर रहे थे, पॉवर्टी कमीशन को, भारत सरकार प्लानिंग कमीशन, उन्होंने कहा बयान देकर, मैंने अखबार में देखा कि झारखंड में गरीबों की संख्या जो है वो 82%, 82%।
सेम।
और कितने गरीब हैं वहां पर जिनको कि बीपीएल कार्ड मिला हुआ है, जिनका नाम है 30%।
52% बिना।
तो इसका मतलब कि इतने लोग जो सचमुच में गरीब हैं उनको गरीबी रेखा का के नीचे नहीं रखा गया है
इन्होंने
और उनको
चौड़ा को
कोई
अमीर
एडवांटेज नहीं मिलता। ना उनको इंदिरा आवास मिलता है, ना उनको वृद्धा पेंशन मिलता है, ना उनको सामाजिक सुरक्षा पेंशन मिलता है, ना उनको नरेगा मिलता है, ना खाना मिलता है, कुछ नहीं। गरीब जितना, और इंक्लूसिव डेवलपमेंट की बात कर रहे हैं। इंक्लूसिव डेवलपमेंट किसका इंक्लूजन? इतनी तकलीफ है, इतनी तकलीफ है, इतनी पीड़ा है, इतनी वेदना है गांव में आज के दिन कि मैं उसका वर्णन भी सदन में उठकर नहीं कर सकता हूं। ये हालत है। और हम बात कर रहे हैं ग्रोथ, इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट। ग्रोथ खाएगा वो जिसका पेट खाली है। आप कह दीजिए 8% ग्रोथ हो गया, 9% ग्रोथ हो गया, तो ग्रोथ खाएगा।
समाप्त किया।
तो इसलिए मैं इस सरकार से अंत में अपील करना चाहता हूं कि जहां एक तरफ इनको अपने बजट को मैनेज करना चाहिए, ढंग से मैनेज करना चाहिए, संतुलन कायम करना चाहिए उस बजट में जो पूरी तरह से असंतुलित हो गया है, जो पूरी तरह से बर्बाद हो चुका है, उस बजट को संतुलित करने का प्रयास करना चाहिए और उन मुद्दों की ओर ध्यान देना चाहिए जो कि गरीबों से रिलेटेड हैं, जो कि गांव से रिलेटेड हैं, जो शहर के गरीब से रिलेटेड हैं, जो भ्रष्टाचार के ऊपर अंकुश लगाएंगे। जब तक ये नहीं होगा तब तक कभी गांव में सड़क नहीं पहुंचेगी, कभी गांव में सड़क नहीं पहुंचेगी, कभी गांव में पीने का पानी नहीं पहुंचेगा, कभी गांव में घर नहीं बनेंगे, कभी गांव में स्कूल नहीं बनेंगे। अभी आप जाके देखिए, अगर कुछ हुआ है गांव में तो वो सर्व शिक्षा अभियान जो हम लोगों ने चलाया था उसी की बिल्डिंग नजर आती है। एक दफा कुछ नहीं किया, कुछ नहीं किया।
आप प्रधानमंत्री सड़क
और खाली चुनाव जीतने के लिए भारत सरकार का 4 लाख करोड़ रुपया इन लोगों ने
श्री अधीर रंजन चौधरी
सिर्फ चुनाव जीतने के
खाली
लिए।
चुनाव जीतने के लिए।
अभी झारखंड में
ये
हारो।
देश की चिंता इनको नहीं है, इनको सिर्फ अपनी चिंता है। इनके देश के लोगों की चिंता नहीं है,
कांग्रेस की
संसद
चिंता है।
सदस्यों की चिंता है। इस
श्री
तरह
अधीर
की
रंजन
व्यवस्था इस देश में
आपका
नहीं चल
समाप्त।
सकती।